What's going on, gang? I don't have an app. I just got my guitar with me, but I figure rather than getting bored to death the next half hour, hang out here, see if anyone wants to pop on and ask me any questions, chat about what's coming up on the channel, and generally have a good time. So, how's everybody doing? Let me know. And of course, I've got the new Renegade. How sick is that neck? If this laptop camera can truly capture the splendor of all that flame, it's doing a not too bad job. Here we go. Good morning from Texas. Where are you in Texas, Tim? And what does your Saturday have in store for you? I can't believe we're almost done with August already. Kind of mad. Todge, brother, we're almost in the same time zone at the moment, mate. I know we're not in the same time zone, but closer than we usually are. I'm good, man. I've got 1 week left of shows for the Fringe, which means another week of hanging out and basically professionally loitering at all the cafes and hot chicken places over here. We got Kevin in Georgia in the USA. What are you up to, Kev? How's your day treating you? I've been to McAllen. That's awesome. Picking up a JP2C. That's sick. Where are you in Europe, Frankie? Oh, mate, we got some royalty in here at the moment. Everybody say hi to Stefan. How are you, bro? It must be getting on close to midnight in ye old Radelaide. Frankie is in Switzerland. Awesome, bro. The very first gig I ever did in Europe was in Switzerland 10 years ago now. Well, coming up on 10 years. It would have been, actually maybe August 2016 in Verbier for a bike festival there. That was amazing. Huge stage. And we played second last. And the last act was this 1 hour long strip review. So, can't get much better than that, can you? Sol Hudson's Tech. How are you, mate? Where are you watching from, dude? Driving back from the footy. Yeah, well, you avoided playing the Red Hot Blues next week, right? Top 6 as well. That will mean, how's this wildcard thing work? So 7 to 10 playoff, and then they earn the right to play 5 and 6. So it's pretty good. Got a week off. Got to watch the Big Texan absolutely oots 6 big ones. Yeah, Frankie knows. Frankie knows about how they treat you in Switzerland. It was a good time, man. Kevin, how often do you bring your guitars to luthiers, Leon? And I'll answer this because John also asked what guitars. I bought a single guitar with me, this one, a new Chilia. So I'm sure people have seen the Renegade that I already had, which had the kind of turquoise grain fill. I'm really curious. What does this conjure up for a lot of people? When I first got it, my wife said it looked like steak, and someone at the show said it looked like it was made of bacon the other night. So yeah, definitely a meaty little thing. The neck as well. So I have 3 Charles Chilia guitars. I've got a Renegade, which has the Godot 1996T, so Floyd style trem on it, which is basically identical to this in terms of pickups and body. Obviously, this has the sick hardtail bridge that Charles made from scratch. But this has a 1 millimeter wider, so I think it's 43 rather than 42, like my other Renegade. And it's got the same neck profile as the first Chilia I got, my semi-hollow, the Bella Aurora. So it's a bit deeper, just generally. It's not like a baseball bat style thick neck, but it's just a nice meaty profile on it. And yeah, I mean, it's a single piece. Yeah, single piece. Is it a single piece? It certainly is. Look at the end grain on that. Single piece of swamp ash, really, really lightweight. Crazy flame maple fretboard and neck. Schala lockers on it. It's immense. So it's a good question. How often do I take my guitars to a luthier? Charles refretted my PRS DGT when I was in Sydney, but I reckon I've probably had at least 8, maybe my guitar refret by a great local tech, Williams Guitars. And he's got a plec and uses the plec not just to, do a fret dress. He'll rip all the frets out, re-radius the fingerboard, completely straighten the fingerboard out, because that's where a lot of the issues my old guitars had. I've got some really cool old Hamers and Gibsons and Fenders. They all had pretty lumpy fretboards, so that needed correction, and then he'll refret them. And he does all the Troy's guitars as well. And probably between us, maybe we've had 20, 25 guitars go through there for the full shebang. And I guess the main thing that I've learned with like a good setup is obviously like the nut needs to be cut right. The actual fingerboard itself needs to be straight. And you got to get the right amount of relief. So what I travel with now is one of the best little things that I've got, the StewMac relief gauge. So especially traveling with guitars that are wood, I have that amazing Rubato carbon fiber guitar that does not move, but everything else moves, going from dry Australian winter to kind of wet Scottish summer. So well, you guys won't be able to see, but there's a little gauge on there which will tell you how much relief you have. So I'm just curious. Standard, yeah, we got, and I just measure it in a few places and interpret the data from there. Yeah, I'm at about 4 1,000ths at the moment, which is what I normally aim for. This has stainless frets on it. Most of my guitars, all my guitars that I've had refretted, I go with stainless just because it's going to last so much longer. So yeah. How often do I do it? Quite a lot, because I have a lot of guitars. A lot of them are pretty busted up. So probably in my early 20s, the one way I'd spend my disposable income was on old guitars. A lot of them, which I thought were cool, but were really, really beaten up. So because of that, they've needed a lot of work. Oh yeah, dude, it's so much better. I guess ideally, you would want something that could do the entire fretboard, but the way this works is you go fret 1. So, you got to do it in the sitting position, but, normally you go like fret 1 to fret 12? And this little guy in the middle, that leans on, what fret does it lean on? I want to say probably fret 6. Am I doing this right? Where do I normally do it? There we go. Yeah. So it's kind of tells you what the relief is. You can wiggle it around a little bit. You're doing it right. Obviously, when the neck's in this position, you have gravity pulling it down versus here. So yeah, it's for maybe $100 US. I can't remember. I'll check. StewMac relief gauge. There's a couple of other companies that make clones of them, but the StewMac one, support the originals with all of this is, where'd it go? The website is not cooperating with me. I feel like I paid about 150 Australian dollars for it, and it's like one of the most useful tools I have. Like once a week, I'll literally just go around the studio at home and check the relief on all my guitars, and any that have moved a little bit, I'll just adjust and bring them in. So there was a guy on one of the live streams I was doing a little while ago who was saying he lives in Borneo, and the swings in temperature and humidity are so extreme. If he's doing a gig that starts in the afternoon and goes into the night, he'll adjust his truss rod like sometimes mid-set, but normally if he's doing like a 3-set gig, it'll be over in between each break just so the guitar plays right. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, absolutely. StewMac have so many cool things. Again, there's a really great John Suhr episode of Tone Talk where he talks about, you know, all the things that go into a good setup. And he mentions that he had his machinist make basically a version of this that goes the entire length of the fretboard, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, when I got my first Chilia, Charles uses one of these to set up his guitars. His setups are incredible. I'm going to go with that, and it means that I probably bother him or bother Tim at Williams Guitars slightly less than I already do. Where are we at in the chat? Do I have any experience with Richlite? I do. I'm a fan, man. I have Richlite on my Rubato Lassie, my old carbon fiber guitar. And do I have it on another guitar? I'm trying to think. What did I play recently? I had an Australian guitar from the Kepler guitars. If you saw that video, that has a Richlite fretboard. I like it. Nice alternative to you know, ebony or something like that, and it really feels like wood, you know. And the fact that it's a composite means they can kind of engineer it to, I guess, outperform your average piece of wood, which is pretty cool. Just got my first real paycheck and bought an Axe-Fx 3 Turbo. Mate, highly approve. Well done. A very, very good use of that first paycheck. Tones explain everything in your videos. You should do a 5-minute tones on Holdsworth. If you don't want to wait for that, you should definitely check out some of the John Cordy videos he's done, either on his channel or the G66 channel with the Holdsworth stuff, especially like the swells, because he's definitely got the touch for playing that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, my favorite Holdsworth thing is the UK album he did, that tune In the Dead of Night. One of my favorite solos ever. It's so good. It's sort of maybe not as, still very technically demanding, not quite as crazy as his later output, but it's one of those things where you're like, man, this was like 1977, 78, and he was playing like that. It's crushing. Fishy 977. Awesome, mate. What are you going to buy? I would love to hear your thoughts. Those videos were very, very fun. How do you usually hold your guitar, mate? Classical position. So my chair at home isn't too dissimilar to this, but I rest one leg normally on my chair, and then yeah, and you know, you can, very, very comfortable position. Super nerdy, but when I'm at home, sometimes playing guitar 6, 8 hours a day, sitting in that position. So yeah, my hip flexors thank me greatly, and so do my so do my hands. What's your favorite guitar pickup set and combo? Look, I'm way less, let's say, dogmatic about this than I used to be. I used to think that there is a perfect pickup combo that will just work for me, when in reality, I just kind of like to play a guitar, and if the pickups don't sound absolutely terrible, I'll leave them in there. Probably my best sounding guitars that I have would be my Hamer Standard. I've got a Duncan Jazz in the neck, and I had a Duncan 78 in the bridge, which is great. I just put an Arcane 1978 in there, which sounds pretty similar. I think it's a little hotter and tighter, but that general recipe I like. The pickups in this Charles makes. So this is an Empyrean and this is a Wildfire. The Wildfire is JB-esque, a little less of a mid bump than the JB, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm an HH guy. That's like this guitar, my Chilia Bella Aurora, my PRS SC245, my Sir Modern, you know, that's the Rubato Lassie. HH combo with some coil splits or parallel options is really nice. I do love a good HSS Strat as well. I think probably my favorite Strat pickups are the Sir Michael Landau set that I've got in my 1977 Strat. They just do the thing for me. I don't mind EMG SAs either. And yeah, I would say for like, I had to pick a generic pickup set, Duncan Jazz is probably my favorite neck pickup. And then something like JB is hard to go by, Custom 5 or the 78, that sort of vibe. I have burst buckers in my 1990 Les Paul Custom, and that's probably my best sounding guitar. So First Bucket 1 and 2, I never would have thought, but they sound incredible in that guitar. So yeah, there's so many good ones though. Picked up TC 2290P. Do you remember if you have chorus and delay at the same time? Not really. The one thing I wish they'd done with that pedal was make it a true dual delay. You know, it's a digital pedal, so you're not constrained by, well, if you want chorus and delay, you need to build twice as much circuitry into it. I like what Boss did with the SDE 3000 pedals they did, where the original SDE was a single delay line, but with the SDE 3000, they made it a dual delay. That's because everyone bought two back in the day. So you can't really do that, but the modulated delays do sound really, really, really good on the 2290, and so does the chorus. So I don't think you can, unfortunately, but a really nice lush modulated delay will always work, arguably just as well. Have you ever dealt with tendonitis? I haven't, but I've had, in my teens, I had something called cubital tunnel syndrome. I was just playing one day and it felt like someone stabbed me in the arm. So I had to take a week off because of that. I mean, probably most of the issues I've had have come from really poor posture and from pressing way too hard. So because especially the last couple of years I've been touring and playing live a lot, it's actually more about being active, making sure I get in the gym every day and do some maybe not too intense stuff, but definitely do some stretching and to do some nerve flossing stuff and things like that before I play. Just trying not to go in totally cold. All right, lean towards an SE-DGT. Yeah, look, the one thing that I have noticed, and this is totally anecdotal, right? The one thing that disappoints me a little bit about my core PRS guitars, I seem to wear through the frets really, really quickly. Whereas I guess, there's a lot more companies now doing the stainless, like jumbo stainless steel fret thing. Just keep in mind that, if you do have to adjust them, it is more work. So, but I think the SE-DGTs, they're my favorite SE model that they make. It's a shame they don't offer a stainless option. I don't think that will change as long as Paul is alive. I would be very, very surprised. Or unless they had a signature artist come on who was like, yo, PRS, build me an Ibanez AZ or a Sir Modern, basically. So yeah, look, for your second foray into the world of guitars, pretty hard to go wrong with that. It compares really, really well. They've captured the core essence of the core model to me. Yeah, my pleasure with the reviews, mate. Yeah, just look, T-Crane, I have always just tried to make videos that I want to see myself. So I'm really, really chuffed and glad that that translates over to people who get use out of it. It's very, very cool to hear. Jay Rhodes, what's up, man? How are you doing? Stefan weighs in. Great sounding guitar, but the neck moved at the drop of a hat, but I could have been very unlucky. Mate, you're just extracting way too much juice out of that thing with those magic fingers that you've got. What was you had a Silver Sky as well, right? Did you have that refinished or something like that? Mate, it's only been, 5 months since we were hanging out in Adelaide, and I already can't remember. Do you think it's worth doing parallel effects in a pedal board? I'm reconfiguring mine for wet, dry, wet using a line mixer, but it's such a hassle. It's worth, bro. I think the wet, dry, wet thing is so overhyped now. It's weird, where it was one of those things where it's like, oh, wet, dry, wet. Why would you be bothered with that? My argument against the hassle of wet, dry, wet is as follows. The reason it was a thing at all was when guys like Bradshaw were building those big rigs, trying to maintain the dry sound was a real challenge. given the capabilities of the units that were being made at the time. So if you had early digital effects, they would transform the dry sound, not necessarily in a better way or a worse way, but they would change it. So if you wanted to maintain that center dry, you would have to find some way of maintaining that with a mixer. Another thing was amps, effects loops weren't a thing. So if you wanted to run your rig stereo post distortion and you're running like a plexi, you've got to load it down somehow. So if you're just doing stereo in that setup, this is before the magic of the reactive load. You've got to use a resistive load where you don't have the same impedance loading on the amp, so it doesn't interact the same way. You don't get the same tone or the same feel, which you don't want. So the way around that is you run a center dry cabinet so that the amplifier sees, an authentic cabinet impedance. You also take a tap from it that you feed out to your stereo effects and then re-amplify. So you've got stereo effects, hence wet, dry, wet. Nowadays, most modern effects pedals have analog dry through, like the Strymon stuff, a bunch of other things out there where you can just run it in series and you're not bashing up your core dry tone and you still have incredible lush sounding effects. I think, look, I think it's worth experimenting with. Unfortunately, if you like the way wet, dry, wet or stereo with a line mixer sounds, you're probably going to end up wanting to do that. But in my opinion, I don't think it's a case that it's always going to sound better. And given the amount of hassle, sometimes it's just easier to run stuff in series. If you think about it, like what's a Strymon timeline doing with its analog dry through? It's letting your dry signal pass through and then it's blending the delay in parallel. So yeah, it's I have noted, there was a video that I saw recently when I was doom scrolling on Instagram, and it was a young guy talking about a wet, dry, wet setup, but he was running in mono. So he was like, "Oh, bro, like, back in the day, dudes like Steve Lukather, when you're like tone maxing, you do wet, dry, wet." But he's running a pedal board with, cool, you're mixing your effects in parallel, but the whole thing's being summed to mono. It's not wet, dry, wet. It's just a mono guitar rig, which is fine, totally fine. But yeah, I think fetishizing wet, dry, wet, you see a lot. It's a cool look. If you've got the space to do it and it's your hobby, I got nothing against that. If you're somebody who's working, just wanted to have a nice stereo guitar sound, bro, it's the technology is totally there now where you can get a sick tone without needing all of that. Rucker, how are you, bro? I add $300 in my mind to every non-stainless steel fret guitar. Dude, I feel like I do the same thing where I'm just like, that's really cool. What will it cost for me to get it playing the way I want it to play? Yeah, I'm very, I'm very, very skeptical that you can hear the difference with that. It's kind of like if anybody hasn't watched them, all of Ken Parker's videos that he was uploading before he passed away recently, so much great information, like talking about the tone of a nut. And he's like, I tested this back in the late 70s. Once you start playing any of the other fretted notes, the nut doesn't impact the sound. He's like, people liked brass nuts because they didn't wear as fast. It's not for tonal reasons. So got a gig tonight north of UK. Bro, that is awesome. I'm in Edinburgh for the next week, playing the Fringe, which is cool. So here we go. The California Now the Solar AC, do you know of any songs that actually use 27 frets? No, I don't think I've played the 25th or 26th fret on my Californian ever. It's like every now and then just hitting at the start of a solo, hitting the 27th fret and sliding down is kind of cool. So have I used the Morningstar controllers and or switches? I don't personally own one, but they're awesome. Troy has a really great rig built around his MC8. And I know they're doing the MC Pros. So yeah, they do really, really solid stuff. They've got that switcher that's a matrix switcher, which is pretty cool, which kind of looks like it can do what my now broken Switchblade could do. Yeah, Silver Sky SE, refinishing gold. Is that the one in your display pic? It looks sick, bro. I think a lot of days people want wet dry wet when really they want parallel verb and delay in stereo. I think you're right, bro. I think you're right, which you can do on a little Fractal VP4. You know, you can get a similar thing going with a little mini line mixer or something and some Strymon pedals. So do I use Windows 11? I don't. I'm on a Mac. Yeah, the whole. Look. I really apologize, man, because I am not savvy to the whole ASIO or Windows drivers. I see it pop up a lot, and I just unfortunately ignore it because I'm always using a Mac. So yeah, I'm popular. Unfortunately, can't really weigh in on that one, but I would definitely contact Fractal support, and they should be able to sort you out. And using the hot tone stage, Fractal, that's cool. Low and high cut at the moment on the gig I'm doing, I have the low cut at 60 hertz and the high cut at like 5K, which might seem extreme, but it just kind of warms everything up, makes it sound nice and fat. So yeah, man, look, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, you know, but there's definitely, it's seeing the, yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon because, like, yeah, people could be using their time in way worse ways, but seeing how certain famous guitar players' rigs get absolutely fetishized and lionized, where it's like those rigs ended up that way because they were just trying to solve problems, and we just don't have those problems anymore. What by guy at work? Heard one of your videos up. What a legend! Thanks, David. That's great. Wishing him and you very, very well. I have all the gear to build a wet dry wet setup and probably will for my home studio, but I doubt I'd ever gig with it. Yeah, it's a lot. You can do it with cabinets in a big room. It's really fun, especially if you set it up so you can swell the wet in with an expression pedal. That is pretty nice because you always have this really cool, you know, solid center image. But guess what? When you're playing in stereo, because of the way our ears work, you can basically do the same thing. In general, the tonal effects of most components seem to be overestimated. Yeah. I mean, not to say that they're not there, but it's one of those things like when people are reporting statistics where, say, a particular variable makes the rate of something go from 0.5% to 0.75% in the population. And the reporting is there's a 50% increase in the rates of, like, oh my God, that's so gigantic. And you're like, well, is it statistically significant? Should be people are just not literate in statistics, unfortunately, which is, you know, why casinos continue to turn a profit and why we as guitar players chase rabbits down rabbit holes all day. The oversampling options, yeah, I really like it. It makes quite a noticeable difference to certain drives. It's a great option to have on there, especially if you just, you know, when you're like drive amp cab delay, you got plenty of juice to run that. Yeah, I mean, this is also a great point as well, where, hey, I'm playing in arenas. I'm going to have the amps on stage. I'm playing Madison Square Basement. Maybe I'll just have my my one in, one out interface and my headphones, which I've been using for the last month, which has actually been sounding sick. I love it. It's so good. I think having the Fractal stuff as a plugin now is, I used to travel with either the AM4 or an FM3, and it was just like, it's great when I want to play a bit of guitar, but I bring my laptop anyway. So yeah, have it all on the laptop and tiny little bus powered interface. So yeah, it's pretty sick. Yeah, Madison Square Basement. There's a suburb in Perth called Wembley, with a venue called the Wembley. It's always great playing there because you can say you're playing at Wembley. I'm an absolute veteran of playing at Wembley. People from Perth know what I'm talking about. Yeah, dude. Look, to be fair, I think I stole that from a forum or something like that. So yeah, Madison Square basement. That's definitely where I am at the moment. Oh man, the what are we talking about? Wet dry wet. I mean, I think as well, it's like it's a cool name. It's compelling. Someone's going, yeah, man, I'm running a wet dry wet rig. You're like, oh, big dog over here. Whereas now, especially if you're like me and you're using a model alive direct to PA, just big stereo rules. Put a bit of pitch detune on there so it sounds wide. Have a quarter note, dotted eighth note rhythmic delay. The venue we're playing in is a Spiegel tent, so it's like you've got the stage in there, but then the audience is in a ring around the stage. So it's a cool, very, very cool. And I'll walk out with my wireless at sound check and walk around the venue. And for anyone who says, "Oh, stereo live is stupid because people can only hear, one side of it," like as soon as you put a panning delay on or something, it's an amazing effect in with a stereo PA, right? So yeah, I love it. Rutger, I am in Edinburgh, mate. Yeah. So I got here when did I leave home? I left my place on the 3rd, and I'll be back at my place on the 31st, which is exciting. Our last show here is the 29th. So yeah, when did we open? On the 7th. Had a day of tech, another day sort of running around, and then yeah, didn't really get smashed too much by the jet lag. So touch wood, on the way back, it's the same. And we are 14, 15 shows in. I lose count after the first week. It sort of becomes a blur, but the show's been going really good. Great audiences, packed rooms most night, and I've been enjoying playing the show. It's such a different thing to your typical rock gig, but it has a lot of typical rock elements in it. So yeah, I think there's something wrong. Hey man, if I could bring all my Strat shape things, I would. It's actually been funny with this. I've had more than one person come up and ask if it's a Nuno Washburn. It's like, oh, I was at the back of the room. I didn't know if you were playing a Washburn. I was like, well, I wanted something with a reverse headstock because of Nuno's. So yeah, bro, Joe was hanging out with him the other night. They went out clubbing, as you can imagine. But I haven't caught up with him, so hopefully I will see him crawling around at some point. Or I might hit him up and see if he wants to come and see our show. I think our shows are on at similar times. So yeah, he's here doing 27 Club and killing it from what I understand. Dave Lewis, what wireless system do you use on top of Perth Cricket Stadium at the Ashes opening? Have you still got your red trainers? This is for you, Dave, of course. You can spot me from space with these. What did we use? So the stadium gig. So for most shows, I have the Nuix B8, perfectly good wireless system. They updated the firmware recently, actually, and I reckon once every 3 or 4 gigs, I get like a 5-second dropout once a gig. And I updated the firmware, and I look, touch wood, hasn't happened yet. I've had 0 dropouts, which I'm super happy with. The stadium gigs. So I did one for Soccer Australia for a World Cup qualifier where I played in the middle of the ground, and they didn't have a dedicated guitar wireless. So we we had a 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch converter cable, then went into like a lav mic transmitter that went to the receiver, where there was an XLR to 1/4 inch converter, which went into my Fractal. And because we had so little time, I'm fairly certain that thing was like spitting out line level rather than guitar level. So I had so much gain. I mean, I always have a lot of gain, but it was like ultimate hot rodded. So it made doing the gig really easy. Then by the time I did the next one for the Ashes, they had purchased some Sennheiser guitar wireless systems. I can't remember which one it was, but the challenge there is there's so much broadcast happening where you have to run every wireless system on a predetermined band because they have, you know, different broadcasters for Australia and the UK and then international and India. So you've got like multiple broadcast teams taking up that stuff. So they have a bunch of wireless bands dedicated to the in-arena entertainment. But it was nice because I could just kind of show up there and they sort of had everything ready for us. And we used a single FM9 for that, both guitars running into it, which I thought was really cool. So we had the same wireless unit. I was playing my Chile Semi. Ryan had my other Renegade, one fractal patch, which was like 5153 blue model, my free IR, and a little bit of delay on it, and the world's biggest reverb in the middle of the stadium. That was pretty cool. It's 3:30. Yeah. So I'm just killing some time in Scotland at the moment. I'll probably head into the show in an hour and a half. As the season goes on, I start going earlier and earlier so I can just kind of bum around and hang out, especially because it was miserable and rainy earlier in the week, whereas I think the sun is threatening to come out, which is exciting. I'll probably go and have a soft drink in the beer garden beforehand. So, hey, mate, how you doing? All the way from Croatia. Well, you're on holiday there. I hope you're enjoying it, mate. Rack Revival. Overloud THU. Sick. Yeah, they've got the SPX Symphonic and stuff. I do have some Overloud stuff coming up that I'm going to do some demo stuff with that I am sworn to secrecy about, but it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, it looks like for all the classic stuff. But yeah, that's cool that they got the IntelliFX chorus on there. I love that. That's so niche, but so fun. I think at least a couple of the guys who work there are big 80s music nerds, which I love. I love to see. My favorite live rig. I think my favorite live rigs that I've had are my current one. So just an FM9 straight to the PA. Sounds sick. If I had my way, I'd always have a really high-end pair of monitors on stage. I'm trying to remember the ones that I had when I was doing some workshops in the States. Oh, far out, they sounded incredible. And they're like 20 grand a pop. But aside from that, yeah, I mean, the fractal thing, if I could have a stereo pair of monitors everywhere, that would be incredible. But, you know, normally I'm just getting a single monitor on stage, even if I'm running stereo to front of house, or having, you know, a stereo power amp with maybe a pair of 212s on stage would be pretty sick. And maybe 10 years ago, I was using, well, 10 years ago, I got my first Axe-Fx, so I'd kind of transitioned the rig fully. Wow, that's wild. Over a decade of using direct rigs. I'm a veteran now. But up before that, I had a Marshall DSL and a dual rectifier in a like wet-dry setup. So the rectifier was always dry, running into a 4x12 cab, and then the DSL, I'd have an Eventide time factor delay in the effects loop. And I'd run that into a little Ampeg 1x12 with a V30 that I had. So that was always really fun because you got the loop on the recto wasn't great. So you could kind of run it at quite a low volume, but through the big 4x12 for the chunk, and then crank up the 1x12 and really sort of push it, and then add the wet effects onto all of that. So yeah, it was great. I was saying, and thanks Dave for reminding me, this is the one guitar that I bought with me, but my mate Dunsey has let me borrow his Richie Kotzen Telly. And I've done, basically, I was too lazy to restring this one day. So I was like, I'll do a couple of shows on the RK. I love the big neck on that. And it sounds really, really good, especially the bridge pickup, that Damasio that he's got in there is just hot. So yeah, that makes life very, very fun. Cedric, welcome. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. Where are we talking? Scott's here. Hey, man. What is news? It'll be morning for you, right? Are you still using the Fishman Fluence Classic humbuckers? To install, sent my Charvel. I actually gave those to a mate of mine. But I like them. Yeah, they just kind of sound like a Duncan JB jazz set. I ended up, so I had them in my PRS McCarty, and I now have a Duncan 59 in the neck and a Sir Doug Aldrich pickup in there. I think because I had the Sir Doug Aldrich pickup and I was like, oh man, I kind of want that very gooey, super high output thing in a guitar. And that was the one where I was like, well, I got a JB and a Jazz in another guitar. I'll pull them out of this and chuck them in there. And I ended up giving them to a mate of mine who needed some pickups for his guitars. So yeah, I think they sound super solid. I have Fishman Moderns in my Hills headless, which is totally a vibe. Like the Moderns into a boosted 5150. It's just the sound of the 2010s, man. But I've also been getting back on the EMG train. So got an 81 in a Strat, and then I have an SA 85 that I'm going to be putting in a guitar that I actually sold to a mate that I'm going to be buying back, kind of doing the Lukather Valley Art style setup. But I won't give too much away about that before I actually get the guitar back and get it set up. So do you like the Patton Regular? Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I don't know if I have any guitars with it, but I've played a couple with it. The PRS necks always feel pretty comfy to me. I like the wide fat as well, and the wide thin, to be fair. But yeah, the Patton Regular, I'm trying to remember what was on my CE, my newer, my like 2020 CE or 2016 CE 24. Might have just been a wide thin. But yeah, I mean, I kind of haven't played a PRS neck I don't like. Like the DGT has that like not quite a soft V, but approaching a soft V. There you go, nice and early, hey? So yeah, I feel like that's pretty good. I'm gonna hang out here for like maybe 3 or 4 more minutes. If anyone has any more questions, fire them over and I'll do my best not to get too distracted. I am, yeah, I'm gonna have to go and get ready and make myself look, well, exactly the same, basically. I'll probably have something to eat and get ready for the show. The cats are well, mate. Yeah, they're well entrenched at home at the moment. We got a new couch while I've been away, so my wife set that up and has been sending me plenty of photos of them chilling on that. So I'm glad the couch has passed the vibe test with the cats, which is very important. But I definitely miss them. Definitely miss them, and it's going to be nice to be back home in a little over a week. Every guitar that catches your eye has a Fishman Fluence. Yeah, I mean, look, they've obviously done very well in marketing their OEM services. It's kind of like 15 years ago where every guitar had an EMG 81, 85 set in it. And then I think a lot of people like EMG 81, 85 suck because they make everything sound the same. It's like, no, it's probably just the fact that they're in everything and you get a bit tired of them. So have you got a notable guitar sale regret? One you still think about to this day? Not really, but I've had a couple of older Hamers that were just really, really beaten up that I sold kind of before I met the tech who does a lot of my guitars now, who definitely would have been able to rescue them and get them into better shape. But yeah, I kind of, when I sold them at the time, I sold them to mates who have done cool stuff with them. So this is one of the advantages of having lots and lots of guitars. Is sometimes you sell something, you don't miss it that much. The big one is I had a guitar that I made from some parts that my dad made. So it was, he's a constant tinkerer and he'd made a batch of necks and bodies. I kind of was like, oh, can I have this neck and this old body? And it became the guitar that I learned how to set up guitars and mod guitars, and we refretted it together. And it was pulled apart. So the body and the neck were off and the pickups were off it because I don't know, I wanted to fit some new bridge on it or something like that. I got stolen. Someone stole the body and the neck. And that one I think about a lot because it's just out there. It's got my name on it. It's got the really bad gunmetal paint job that I did on it. And I did the I sanded all the paint off this part of the guitar. And I did the Vi green meanie thing where I sanded the cutaway down to the fretboard. It had really, really big frets on it. The neck was like super, super comfy as well. So yeah, I missed that thing because I played that guitar all through high school as well. Not really one that I sold, but definitely one that got away. Am I using older devices purely for nostalgic reasons? Pretty much, yeah. I mean, the old rack stuff is, I don't need it, but I like it. It also serves the one thing, I guess, for non-nostalgic purposes would be having those units well maintained means I can use them as reference material. So for example, like an Eventide detune or a TC2290 delay, they're the units that were used on some of my favorite records. And all of the time, those old records just use presets. So I can bring those presets up on the unit, I can listen to them, I can measure stuff about them, and I can go about recreating that with modern gear, like I have with like my Fractal Helix blocks libraries and things like that. And then, not everybody has like $3,000 to drop on an Eventide H3000 just to get the detune. If I can get it 90-95% as close and share it as a tiny little block file with people, then everybody gets the benefit of having that classic sound. So that's how I justify keeping them anyway, and trying to keep them maintained, because they're important to the history of some of our favorite recorded music. The same way keeping like an old late 60s Marshall Plexi in stock condition kind of ends up being important, right? So yeah, man. Yeah. I imagine that one hurts. And yeah, exactly, Scott. Exactly. Do I have VP4 presets we can get? A lot of the factory presets are mine, so you've already got some of them. But I have a VP4 blocks library, which is up on my Gumroad store. If you want to check that out, I think it's like $5. Do you feel like being generous? So yeah, you can't take the Axe-Fx FM9 and FM3 blocks and just bring them into the VP4. So I had to go manually and recreate all of them. This is a good question. Any vintage gear still on your watch list? Yeah, a few things. More than a few things. I would really like. RJ did a video this week, I think, with some Lexicon PCM 42s. I don't know if I'd like to drop the money on a pair of them, but I'd definitely like to borrow them and try them, and again, see how close I could recreate them with a modern delay line. There is I mean, the H3000 2290 PCM 70 is kind of the holy grail for me. Love to try a PCM 60. I would love to try some of the Kurzweil stuff that they put out in the 90s, like kind of their answer to the Eventide stuff. Obviously, the old Lexicon 480L 224 would be super cool to get the chance to play through a real one. I'm trying to think in terms of other rack things. Definitely some. The last 3 or 4 months, I definitely spent a bit of time trying to hunt down some 90s Boss pedals that were underappreciated. So I have episodes of the Great or Garbage series coming up, going through those. I filmed them before I left and edited them and have scheduled them. So looking forward to those coming out. In fact, I think one's coming out on Monday. So yeah, just kind of revisiting some of that stuff. I would love, and I probably should look into it, getting my ADA MP2 service so that it works properly. It's like the first 5 modes work and then the rest don't. Kind of did a video with it 4 or 5 years ago and just haven't got around to doing that. So yeah, awesome. Yeah, the ADAs probably just need a recap. My original one definitely needs one. My modded one had a recap and the 3-tube mod. So did you retire the PRS single cut for good or planning on putting it back into rotation? It needs a refret. Yeah. So that's something maybe this year or next year I'll look into getting, because I still love the way that guitar plays and sounds. It's just, I feel like I kind of found my sound on that instrument. And yeah, it's just, It's just being played a lot, well, which is understandable. I think it was made in 2008. I bought it in 2014 and then basically exclusively used it for like 6 or 7 years. So yeah, got a lot of miles in the legs on that one. But the first 5 frets are just lumpy and shot. So that one is definitely due for a stainless refret, I think. And also, your tastes change a little bit over time. Like the Super Strat thing has been calling a little bit more than it used to. Old Epiphone version of the Rockman. What's it called? I've never heard of that. I know there was something called a rock box, which my dad still has an old one. Should probably drag out and do something. And then Nobles had the SST or whatever it's called. I had one of those for a while. So yeah, the Blocks does, but yeah, it's got the exact PCM pan, circular, and quattro delays that are matched in there. And the thing about it is you can plug those time values in, but the actual time values you measure aren't the same. So that was the interesting thing there. And there's also the outputs aren't quite calibrated properly when you like the left volume and the right volume. And I've noticed this across a couple of units. So yeah, there's like pretty intense nerdery gone into those. I had a mate who is in Sweden help me measure those and recreate them and did a great job. I matched, so the Eventide Eclipse has a really, really good sounding vintage delays algorithm that's based on a PCM42. So I recreated my favorite Eclipse vintage delays settings with the VP4 and the Axe. So it's like a roundabout PCM42, but I've never had a real one in my hands to measure. The later MPX stuff, I think I had like a Lex, what is it, a 2000, which I thought sounded really, really good. As long as it's got the Lexi chip, man, it's going to sound pretty amazing. The bypass might not sound amazing on it, but you can run in parallel with a line mixer and get around that. So, mate, look, if you've never owned a Tube Screamer, but you've owned an SD one, totally fine. Although they definitely have a different experience. I kind of like the 808 just because I think it looks cooler and it's quirkier, but you can mod an SD one into a TS fairly easily as well. The one-to-one, look, this is definitely on the list for the end of the year where I want to basically go through some of my rack presets, build a couple of those rigs. Yeah, that's a very, very good suggestion. Epiphone head jammer. I'm gonna look that up. Oh, dude, the Magic Stomp rules, and you can get the Holdsworth 8 delay tap, delay chorus things in there. I had one for a while and had a fun time demoing it. Oh, Dunsey, what's up, brother? Well, I don't know, mate. I haven't played your 70s SG recently, so I can only judge it on the Kotzen. And by the way, before I go and subscribe to Dunsey's Guitar World, especially if you like funky old Japanese guitars. We're going to hang out at the start of next week and maybe go to a couple of guitar stores here as well. So on that, I'm going to split. This has been fun. I think I might do this next week as well. So keep your eye out for some more live stuff. And yeah, one more. Here's everyone's going back to the age of the rack gear. I like that time these days. I do not see him go through all of that again. Yeah, man, look, you can cop those tones on stuff that is so much smaller and less expensive now. What a time to be alive. And on that note, love you guys. See you next time. Take it easy.